Now, let's look at a number of foreign stories. Late on Friday last week, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo signed a peace deal in Washington, D.C., aimed at ending decades of a devastating conflict between the two neighbors and potentially granting the United States lucrative mineral assets. The deal demands the disengagement, disarmament, and conditional integration of armed groups fighting in eastern DR Congo. Previous peace deals in the region have failed. Yet, that has not deterred U.S. President Donald Trump and Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi from framing this as a generational victory. Writing on his Truth Social platform the week before, when an initial agreement was reached, Trump exclaimed, and I quote, "This is a great day for Africa," and, he says, a great day for the world. In Uganda, President Yoweri Museveni seeks to be re-elected in next year's general election, aiming to extend his nearly 40-year rule. A senior official from the ruling National Resistance Movement confirmed that Museveni will collect nomination forms on June 28 to contest both the party's chairmanship and presidential ticket. The 80-year-old leader, who has been in power since 1986, is one of Africa's longest-serving presidents. Uganda's constitution has been amended twice to allow him to run again. Museveni is expected to face a renewed challenge from opposition leader Bobi Wine, who came second in 2021. The opposition leader alleges that vote rigging and military intimidation robbed him of victory in that election. Kenya, at least 16 people have been killed and more than 400 injured during violent anti-government protests across Kenya, as anger over economic hardship and police brutality boiled over. This past week, what began as peaceful demonstrations marking the anniversary of deadly tax protests quickly turned poetic, chaotic, with looting, fires, and clashes with police reported in 23 counties. In Nairobi, shopping centers and banks were ransacked or destroyed. Amnesty International has condemned the use of excessive force. The government called the unrest terrorism disguised as dissent, with some officials labeling it an attempted coup. President Ruto remains under pressure amid growing public frustration. Now to the United States, where a classified preliminary U.S. intelligence report has concluded that American strikes on Iran set back Tehran's nuclear program by just a few months, rather than destroying it as claimed by President Trump. U.S. media on Tuesday called people familiar with the Defense Intelligence Agency findings as saying the weekend strikes did not fully eliminate Iran's centrifuges or stockpile of enriched uranium. The aerial bombardments and missile strikes sealed off entrances to some facilities without destroying underground buildings, they said. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed the authenticity of the DIA assessment, but said it was flat out wrong and was classified as top secret, but was still leaked in an attempt to undermine Trump and discredit the military operation. Trump insists that those airstrikes resulted in the total obliteration of Iran's nuclear capabilities, setting the country's atomic program back by decades. In a related development, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says that Iran would never surrender to the United States, striking a defiant tone in his first remarks since his ceasefire with Israel took hold. Khamenei, who is 86 years old, claimed victory after 12 days of war, culminating in an Iranian attack on the largest U.S. military base in the Middle East, in Qatar, after the Israeli assault. In his words, the U.S. president unveiled the truth and made it clear that Americans won't be satisfied with anything less than the surrender of Iran. Such an event will never happen, he said. Khamenei's remarks come 2 days after a ceasefire halted the war between Iran and Israel, the rivals' deadliest and most destructive confrontation, and marks its first public appearance since June 19. Dr. Victor Okhai is an African and global affairs analyst. He joins me now to offer his thoughts on those developing stories. Good to see you, Dr. Okhai, and your thoughts. I don't know where we want to start from, okay. Whether Uganda or Kenya or United States or Iran or Israel or wherever. Quite a mouthful of an introduction there.
Okay, so maybe we can start with DRC, Rwanda. But before I say that, let me commend you and probably name you the best dressed presenter on television. You have a very good dress sense. So,
no, it's my wife.
Your wife?
It's not me.
Kudos to her.
It's Kiki. She's the one
Kudos to you. Yes. So, yeah. So, looking at DRC, you will recall that, I've heard people say the Americans are coming there, it's just for economic reasons and all that, but you will recall that the DRC president was the first to invite them, to come and intervene. Apparently, over the years, these problems have persisted, and it's like there's no solution in sight. The M23 rebels, backed by, of course, the president of Rwanda, this just seemed, in Eastern Congo, they just seem to be hitting and not letting go. And it's created more problems for DRC, which is one of the richest, potentially richest countries in the world. But it's like money so near and yet so far, they can't tap into it. And so that cry for help came, and I think someone heard, and it's the reason America is involved in it today. Permit me to speak a little pidgin English, or say, okay, regular English, I can say that. So you can eat oil because of yam, or you can eat yam because of oil. The important thing is that you have eaten yam and oil. I think that it's in the best interest of the people of the DRC in particular, which is a theater of war right now, for there to be peace. However it is achieved in the first instance, I think it's fine. It's a way forward. And subsequently, negotiations can continue about, mineral rights, who has what rights, what is due to Congo, but you cannot do all of that in the absence of peace. So I think for that reason, I personally think that it is commendable because there is peace in sight right now. But there may be those that will argue that peace without justice may not sustain, because you want to say to yourself, what happens to those who have killed people all of this while? Are they getting away with it? And will it not encourage more of this? But since the Americans have an interest right now, whether selfish or whatever, and wherever they have economic interests, they do take very seriously. Rare earth minerals are not in short supply in DRC. You need it for your Tesla, you need it for your iPhones, you need it for a lot of things that are being produced. And there's plenty of it in the DRC. So I think that at the end of the day, this will present a win-win situation for all concerned. My thought.
Okay, you talked about DRC.
DRC, yes.
And the United States.
Yes.
And President Trump's America first interest.
Yes, yes.
Now, you recall that his intervention in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia.
Yes.
It's also about rare earth materials, trying to take control of other people's materials.
Yes.
So Trump, if you classify him, he looks like a transactional leader. He looks like somebody who just wants to collect other people's, resources.
He's a deal maker. I mean, let's face it. For over 2 decades, the DRC has not been at peace. And it can continue. And we cannot deny the fact that there are interests, or there are powers in whose interests that what is happening should continue. It's like what's happening in Zamfara. Sorry to bring it back home, but you know that for as long as there is no proper peace in a place like Zamfara, for instance, it's easy for people. You cannot have a coordinated and properly structured system for mining your gold and exploiting it for the good of the nation. Okay, what you then find is foreign interests and local politicians who are just stealing those resources. So in the midst of all that, of that chaos, it will thrive. And so, I would rather that there's peace. When there's peace, then you're able to deal with the matter. And I think that is what is going on right now.
Okay, let's go to Uganda, where Yoweri Museveni wants to sit tight for life. He wants a 7th term. And if you can link Uganda, since we're dealing with foreign issues,
yes,
to Togo,
yes,
where Faure Gnassingbé also wants to be president for life. This African president, they just want to be there for life, whether it's in Uganda or it's in Togo.
Or it's in Togo. It's like Gnassingbé, of course, is coming from a dynasty, if I may use that language.
7 years
yes,
of ruling Togo.
Yes.
19 years of that period
yes.
Belonging to Faure Gnassingbé. Now they have took the constitution of the country for him to stay forever till 2035.
No,
and for him to get a renewal. And in Uganda,
yes,
another man there is saying he wants to be
he's saying the same. You see, this is the reason why sometimes you wonder. Okay, let me just take them individually, and then we can.
Is it an African problem?
Well, it does appear like an African. What do you call these diseases now that go? Okay, I can't quite find the word.
It's okay. You can say it's an African disease.
Yes, African disease. Yeah. Now you can see what's his name now in Uganda. What the Museveni is doing. He's, like you rightly pointed out, he's tweaked the constitution twice now to allow him to continue. And not only that, every opposition, with Bobby Wine, I mean, his son, who is like the heir apparent, okay, has threatened to behead Bobby Wine. And then the other opposition leader is now being tried and may end up being summarily executed. For what? For daring to challenge the power that is. We're talking about this too. We're forgetting Paul Biya, who has been there since forever, in Cameroon as well. So sometimes when you see things like what happened in Mali, Burkina Faso, and what's the other country? Niger, happen, you want to say to yourself, some Democrats will say, oh no, military rule is not good at all. Nobody is encouraging that, and quite frankly, civil rule is always the best. But there are civilian leaders who are perpetrating themselves through the military, okay? And so they have the military boys around them, they feed them fat, make them very comfortable, and these ones perpetuate them in power. So it's like military rule by other means. Because they clamp down on everyone, they'll bring state power against every opposition. And opposition just suddenly disappears, and no one can talk anymore. And so it's easy, therefore, to tweak the constitution. If you must be in the opposition, you must run out of the country. You cannot do it from within. And so the only other way, what was that thing? Say if you make peaceful change impossible, violent change becomes inevitable. Mm-hmm. So these are the things that call for things like that, for instance, where you find countries, some of these old leaders, it was happening in ECOWAS, where they have ambitions to remain in power for long. And so they want, what happened in the case of Niger and the rest was, they wanted to create rules that will say no military coup will be allowed. But at the same time, are you saying that no civilian governments should abuse power, you know, and then perpetuate themselves? Unless there is a proper balance, then we would have problems like that. And that's what we're seeing in Uganda, that's what we're seeing in Togo, and that's what we're seeing in Cameroon.
Okay, by way of summary,
yes.
What does this say about democratic consolidation in Africa? Since 2010, we have had 15 African presidents tinkering with the constitution, saying they will extend their stay. We have had 4 supposedly African democracies organizing coups. So what does it say about the future of democracy in Africa? What do we need to do?
Okay, so first of all, where I thought a solution would come from, there are just a bunch of toothless bulldogs, and I want to mention the AU. You know, because these, I mean, I remember there was something Obasanjo did in his time, this peer review, you know, among African leaders, which I thought was a very good idea. And the reason behind it is that leaders are able to talk to each other. Yes,
Obasanjo, Thabo Mbeki.
Yes, yes. So leaders are able to talk to themselves and among themselves. And so if one person is trying to perpetuate himself, for instance, I've not been to any of those meetings, I don't know what it's like, but people are able to talk.
Never worked.
Yeah, for obvious reasons, obviously, because people have their ambitions, they have their plans. It's the same reason African Union cannot speak with one voice. Because as you're finishing the meeting, France is calling and saying, what did you guys talk about? And because you want to remain in their good books, you're saying, oh, don't mind them, this is what they say and all that. You know, and so that's the problem we're having. And so they are beholden to powers without because they want to perpetuate themselves in office and remain for as long as possible. Many have made themselves puppets, not because anyone is trying to make them a puppet, but because they need that, you know, that link in order for them to remain in power. So that if anything happens, they can get the support of the puppeteers that are operating from outside the continent.
Okay. What's your take on Kenya?
Okay, so
anniversary of the Kenya finance bill protest.
It reminds me of the October 20, what's it called now? The SARS riots. Anti-SARS riots in Nigeria, where the youth decided, it wasn't really against government, but decided to go against a system that was oppressing them. So I'm drawing parallels, you know, with the two. In the case of Kenya, the finance bill was a cause, and then there were issues around privacy, which means that they wanted to get information from them, you know, to be able to know how much you make, how much, and all of that. And Gen Z wasn't having any of that. You know, that's a generation that, let me say in pidgin English, they're not a hear word. You understand? So the Gen Zs took matters into their hands and went into the streets and said, no, this cannot. And so for once, the government had to backtrack, you know, and retract its steps. You know, so 1 year later, obviously you would have thought everything has ended, but I think the way it was handled the first time, it didn't seem like it was properly settled. And so there was a rehash. And the reason why it is even going the way it is that instead of dialogue, government is using force. I heard Ruto saying if you do anything that the police will come down heavily if anyone. Of course, you don't go against the national police. It's not, that should not be encouraged. But I expect that there should be dialogue with the young people, with the citizens. You know that even the tax reforms here was greeted initially with a lot of protests from the north and from, you know, northern governors and various interests.
No, we have settled our own.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Everybody is happy.
Everybody is happy. So the point I'm making is the government here engaged. You know, that's the difference. They engaged. They listened to everyone, got inputs from everyone, involved all stakeholders. So at the end of the day, there was peace, so there was input, unlike what is happening in Kenya. Because there, it's like, I think that Ruto should have taken from Tinubu's playbook, but Tinubu's playbook came after. If anything...
President Tinubu is in St. Lucia.
Holiday.
Life today.
Well,
okay, we're talking
he's
about
an old
Kenya.
man, so he should enjoy himself. If it's his leave, he should enjoy it. I wish I went to Obudu, made Obudu good enough for him to go to our own place there. But it's fine. He can do it for the optics, even if not for anything else. So the Kenya issue is coming up again because Ruto obviously is thinking more about using brute force than dialogue. And this is one of the mistakes that African leaders make. There's a need, no matter how right what you do is, perception is usually even stronger than reality in the minds of people. And so, and it's the reason why Jesus was crucified, even though he was a righteous man. Okay? If they perceive you wrongly, even a criminal will look like a saint where you are. So you may have the best of intentions, but how would I know? I can't read your mind. So it's important to be able to bring everyone together and say, okay, this is what we're doing. Get their inputs. In fact, bring the Gen Zs to come and sit at the table and say, guys, here's what we want to do. Okay, what do you want? What are your inputs? And by the time you do that, at the end of the day, you will not be having problems like this.
Okay, very good. On the issue of Kenya, I wanted you to talk about Kenya, but you dragged Nigeria into the issue.
No, but we have to make references.
Yes. President Tinubu just signed for tax bills into law.
Yes.
And the man who is going to man the framework, the administration, is a man called Zacchaeus.
Yeah.
Zacchaeus Adidiji.
What a coincidence. I don't know whether it's a coincidence.
And Zacchaeus in the Bible is a tax collector.
He's a tax collector.
So we have the right man, the right name, in charge of this new regime.
Serendipity.
And the tax collector has said, okay, this won't take effect until January.
Yes.
So Zacchaeus, the tax collector, what will you say to him?
I would say, I don't know his height. I don't know how tall.
Confounded by the name.
I'm really confounded. I mean, the coincidence is just too much.
No,
but it
his
happens.
name is Zacchaeus.
No, I know. That's
Dr.
what I'm saying.
Zacchaeus Adidi.
Yes,
and he wants to collect tax.
So what I would say to him is, no nation can tax its way to prosperity. That has been established in economics. So what I would say is, whatever you do, you let it be with a human face. Whatever tax, whatever is being done, regardless of what the laws that have been, the bills that have been signed right now, it should be towards stimulating growth in the real sector and in promoting SMEs. And I see that in the tax. Yes, I see that because because if they survive, then more people will be employed, and then businesses will grow and all that. But I think another thing that they also need to do is to ensure that foreign investors are not driven away. They should be encouraged not to compete, to choke local businesses at a higher level. When they come in, then the atmosphere, because I heard, and I cannot be carrying rumors here right now, but that going forward, one of the reforms that they want to bring, I may be wrong, but if I'm right, then you heard it here first, is that if you're having any, for every foreigner coming to work in the country, you have to pay an annual fee of about $5 million. Remember, everything I'm saying right now is not confirmed. I'm just saying. If he works, if you hear it, you heard it here first. If you didn't, then So it's going to be very, very difficult for a lot of them to come and work in the country. And I don't know if that is, if we're encouraging people to come and invest in the country, then we should not make things so very difficult. We can work alongside with foreign investors and local investors. We should just make sure that we protect our local investors. There are areas we must protect. For instance, we should not be seeing Chinese people selling phones with our people, retailing phones on the streets with our people, something that they do in other countries. So protect our small industries. And I thought that even with, because with tax, you remember in those days, at the beginning of every year, you have the national budget. And what we're always looking out for is not even those figures, it's what was banned and what was, the tariffs that were imposed, what goods were banned and which ones were lifted. And most companies would usually take a cue. They would not prepare their budget until they know the national budget because of the implication on their own, on their operations. And so what I would expect is to say, okay, I'm really worried that our textile mills, our textile industry, that we're not doing anything to encourage a rebirth of that industry. China is now, before you know what's happening, Algeria will be coming from there. Before you know what's happening, Ashoke will be coming from there. What's going to happen to our local artisans? These are things we must protect. I think that in doing our tax reforms, in the tariff structure and in the things that we ban and unban, we should begin to think about how to protect our local industry and our local artisans.
Okay, very good. Well, Dr. Okhai, I've kept you much longer than you expected.
Oh, that's fine.
I'd like you to talk about Israel-Iran.
Yes.
Since we're talking majorly about foreign issues.
Yes.
Now, Ayatollah Khamenei says the U.S. is lying, no damage has been done. The U.S. is saying, oh, we obliterated. And, in a leaked statement, some people are saying, the Pentagon, we were told, the intelligence arm of the Defense Intelligence Agency, that, well, Iran can recover in 2-3 weeks. But what we know that we can hold on to is that there is a ceasefire. And that ceasefire is helping markets, either in Asia or on the Wall Street, and that also oil price has gone down and all of that. But the main thing about this is about the possibility for peace. Do you think World War III, that many people predicted, has been averted? And do you think that the world is a much safer place? But the big issue, as I've argued on the morning show, is about the uranium enrichment program. Would both the UN agency and the United States make any progress with this deterrence to stop Iran from enriching uranium? They are proposing that, if Iran must do anything, it should be for civilian energy purposes. That's what the literature says. But where are we with regard to, this conflict between Israel and Iran and the surrogates, the allies that have entered the conflict, either Houthis or Hezbollah on the Iranian side, or the United States on the Israeli side?
Yes. Okay, so propaganda is a legitimate weapon of warfare. And all parties...
So says
yes.
Sun Tzu.
Okay, Sun Tzu, yes.
In The Art of War.
Yes. So, and so you can see Goebbelian tendencies from both sides. All of them want to... Trump, for instance, he would speak before he thinks. They told him that there would be the bunker...
You are saying the American president will talk before he thinks? You have a US visa, they will cancel your visa.
Well, what I'm saying...
they will obliterate your visa.
Well, I'm not talking about the American president, I'm talking about Trump. The Trump I used to know.
So just be careful. If you have a US visa, they will obliterate it.
And, I think they know that I mean well. So, he has said that it's been obliterated. I don't see him going back on his word. Rather, you find a way to amend it or find a way to... Because he had said it already, based on the reports he was given, the assurance he was given. I'm told that he wasn't ready to go until he was absolutely sure that it would be obliterated. And then the B-2 bombers went, and then the obliterated, ignorated, So at the end of the day, It was a bit embarrassing. If that is the case, it could be embarrassing. So, but the thing now is, I think that it achieved its purpose. And the purpose is to show that might. If you notice, deception is a part of warfare as well. You know, what Trump did was he kept saying, in 2 weeks, I may not, and all of that. And so the Iranians never saw it coming. Not that it would not have happened ultimately, but they never expected it when it happened. And so when it finally happened, the shocker was too much. And what America is trying to do there is just, because the truth is that if anything happens to Iran, they're a major supplier of oil in the world, and it's going to affect world economy generally. And the Iranians, I've forgotten what that place is called. That
Strait of Hormuz.
Thank you very much.
Strait of Hormuz?
Yes.
Between the Persian Peninsula and the Arabian Sea.
Exactly.
20% of global world oil supply.
In trade, as a matter of fact, it passes through that place. You know, ships and all that. So it's not an empty threat. The Iranians are prepared to do anything. And the minute that place is blocked, honestly, everyone will pay the price, okay? So what they've simply done is hit them, and you know, in a way that will show what is possible. It's like knock sense into them for further negotiation. What they use the Israelis to, now this is what we might call obliterate all their military commanders, you know, and the second and the successive ones. Again, they did that, and so the think tank, the core think tank, has been obliterated. So what you have now, a fresh set of people with the and they've isolated Ayatollah himself. So what I would say right now is, I don't see Third World War. That is not the intention. Russia certainly isn't going to be drawn into any. They have enough problems in Ukraine. China will not be drawn into it. So, but what has happened is that Iran has been knocked into a position where they have no choice but to sit down and negotiate. And I think that is what is going on right now.
Thank you very much, Dr. Victor Okhai, for always obliging us when we call on you. We'll take a short break now, here on This Is Live, the Sunday Talk Show.